My name is Cale Vaughn and my hands are shaking as I record this message. I have served as an ambassador on the Galactic Council for 43 cycles. I have seen wars begin and end. I have watched civilizations rise from dust and fall back into it. But what happened in that council chamber 3 days ago has broken something inside me that I do not think will ever heal. I need to tell you what I saw. I need someone to know in case I do not survive what comes next. It started on a quiet morning. The great hall of the Galactic Council was full, as it always is on Judgment Days. 412 civilizations sit in that room. Some are tall, some are small, some breathe air, and some breathe gas, but all of us share one purpose. We keep the peace. We settle disputes before they become wars. For 9,000 years this council has worked. 9,000 years of careful talking, careful trading, and careful silence. When silence was needed, then the Verithari ambassador stood up and everything changed. The Verithari are an old species, older than most. They look like tall insects with hard shells, the color of dried blood, and 6 long limbs that click when they move. Their empire holds more than 80,000 warships. They are not the largest power in the galaxy, but they are the most feared. They do not negotiate. They do not forgive. When they want something, they take it, and the council usually finds a way to look the other way. High Marshal Excess did not come to negotiate that day. He came to give an order. His translator hissed and crackled as he spoke, and his words filled the chamber like cold smoke. We claim the Kepler system, he said. It belongs to us by ancestral right. The young species called humans must leave it. They have 30 rotations to remove themselves and all their property. If they do not, we will remove them ourselves. I felt a strange chill when he said the word humans. It was not fear, it was something else, something I could not name yet. Humans are new to this galaxy. They joined the council only 40 years ago, given observer status because they had just learned how to travel faster than light. They are small creatures, soft and warm, with only 4 limbs and round faces that show every emotion they feel. They are polite. They smile a lot. They bring gifts to council meetings. Most delegates think of them the way you might think of a child who has wandered into an adult meeting, curious, charming, a little bit silly. I had always liked the humans. Their ambassador, Dr. Elena Brooks, was a kind woman who remembered the names of everyone she met. She would ask about my family. She would bring small foods from Earth to share, sweet things wrapped in colored paper. She was the last person in that chamber I expected to bring trouble, but when High Marshal XSS Deck finished his demand, every eye turned to her. The humans had only 1 seat on the council, and she filled it. Now she had to answer for her whole species. She did not stand up right away. She sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, looking at the Verithari ambassador with those soft brown eyes. The silence in the chamber stretched on and on. Some delegates began to whisper. Others looked away, embarrassed for her. They thought she was frozen with fear. I was sitting close enough to see her face clearly, and I will tell you something that I have not been able to forget. She was not afraid. She was sad, deeply, deeply sad, the way a parent is sad when a child refuses to listen and is about to learn a hard lesson. Beside me sat the oldest delegate in the council, an elder of the Korathi people named Velnis, the Korathi lived for 2,000 years, and Velnis had served for 900 of them. He had seen everything. He had survived the Great Silence War. He had been there when the council was first formed. He never spoke during sessions. Unless something was very wrong, he grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, painful. His old eyes were wide with something I had never seen in them before, pure terror. Kale, he whispered. Kale, listen to me. When this session ends, you must leave the chamber. You must go to the docking bay. You must take any ship and fly to the farthest world you can find. Do you understand me? I stared at him. I thought he had lost his mind. He had not slept well in many cycles, and I knew his memory was beginning to fade. Vel, I said softly, it is only a territorial dispute. The humans will agree. They always agree. They have no choice. He shook his head slowly, sadly. You do not know them. He whispered. You have never read the files. I have. I read them 70 years ago, when the first scout ships returned from their world. I have not slept properly since. I did not know what to say. Before I could ask him to explain, Dr. Brooks finally stood up. The chamber went silent again. She did not speak for a long moment. She just looked at the Verthari ambassador. Then she looked at the council. Then she looked back at him. When she finally spoke, her voice was so quiet that the translators almost missed it. High Marshal, she said, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You are giving my people 30 days to leave the Kepler system, and if we do not leave, you will use your fleet to remove us. Is that what you are saying? That is exactly what I am saying, the Verthari replied. His mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his people. I am giving you a chance to live. A small species like yours should be grateful for that. She nodded slowly. She seemed to be thinking very carefully about her next words. I see, she said. Then I have an answer for you. The whole chamber leaned forward. I held my breath. Velnis closed his eyes and began to murmur a Korathi prayer. Dr. Brooks took a small breath, and then she smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was not the warm smile she gave when she handed out her sweet wrapped gifts. It was something else, something old, something that did not belong on her gentle face. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time for a question to be asked and was now relieved that it had finally come. We accept your challenge, she said. May whatever you believe in be kind to you in the days ahead, because we will not be. She sat down. She folded her hands. Again, the chamber was silent. For a moment, no one moved. Then the Verthari ambassador laughed. It was a horrible, clicking sound like dry sticks breaking. Several other delegates joined in. They thought it was a joke. They thought the small, soft human had made a brave but empty speech. I did not laugh. Velnis did not laugh. We looked at each other, and in his ancient eyes I saw the truth of what had just happened. Something terrible had been set in motion, something that could not be stopped now. The session ended. The delegates filed out, still chuckling about the humans and their funny show of courage. The Verthari ambassador walked past Dr. Brooks and made a rude gesture with his mandibles. She did not react. She just gathered her papers and walked out quietly, like she always did. I caught up with Velnis in the hallway. He was walking quickly, faster than I had seen him move in years. Wait, I said, please explain to me. What did I just see? What is wrong with you? He stopped. He looked around too. Make sure no one was listening. Then he pulled me close and spoke in a voice so low I had to strain to hear it. Kale, he said, I'm going to give you advice now. And I want you to listen carefully. Go to the archive. Ask for file series 87. Tell them I sent you. They will not want to give it to you. Tell them it is an emergency. Read what is in those files. Read every word. What are they? I asked. They are the Council's secret studies on Earth and its people, studies that were ordered to be hidden because reading them caused too many delegates to resign. 2 of the 3 delegates who read them ended their own service within a week. One of them went home and would not speak for the rest of her life. I felt cold, very cold. And the third? I asked. Vilnius looked at me with eyes full of pain. The third was me, he said. And I have been afraid every single day since. He walked away then, leaving me alone in the great marble hallway. The afternoon light was streaming through the tall windows, painting golden patterns on the floor. It should have been a beautiful sight, but all I could think about was the smile on Dr. Brooks's face, the way her gentle features had shifted just for a moment into something I had never seen before. I thought about the Verthari fleet, 80,000 warships, the most powerful military force in this part of the galaxy. I thought about the humans, their few hundred small ships, their soft bodies, their polite manners, their warm smiles. The math was clear. The Verthari would win. The humans would either flee or be destroyed. That was how these things always went. And yet I could not shake the feeling that I had just watched something far worse than a war begin. I had watched a door open, a door that should have stayed closed, a door that the humans themselves had been guarding patiently for 40 years, waiting to see if anyone would be foolish enough to knock on it. The Verthari had knocked. I walked toward the archive that evening with shaking legs. The sun was setting outside, turning the council towers blood red. I should have gone home. I should have called my children. I should have done anything except walk into that archive and ask for file series 87. But I had to know, I had to understand why an old man who had seen 900 years of galactic history was now terrified of a species that smiled too much and brought sweet candies to meetings. The archive clerk was a small gray creature with too many eyes. When I told her what I wanted, all of her eyes blinked at once. She did not move for a long moment. Are you sure, Ambassador? She finally asked. That file series is restricted, very restricted. Velnas of Korath sent me. I said. He said to tell you it is an emergency. She did not ask any more questions. She simply turned and walked into the back rooms. When she returned, she was carrying a heavy data crystal in both of her thin hands. She placed it on the desk between us and pushed it toward me, slowly as if it might bite. Read it in the private chamber, she said. Not at home, not in your office, here, and when you are done, return it to me directly. Not to any other clerk, just me. I took the crystal. It felt warm in my hand, though it should have been cold. One more thing, she said as I turned to leave. She would not meet my eyes. Do not read it before bed. You will not sleep again for a long time if you do. I walked into the private reading chamber. I locked the door behind me. I sat down at the table. I placed the crystal into the reader. The screen lit up. The first page appeared. The title was written in plain Galactic standard. 3 simple words: the humans of Earth I took a deep breath. I began to read. And as I read, the chill that had begun in my chest during the council session spread through my entire body. I read. For hours I forgot to eat. I forgot to drink. I forgot that the sun had set and risen again outside. By the time I finished, I understood why. Velnez had told me to run. I understood that the Verthari were already dead. They just did not know it yet, and I understood with a sickness that filled my whole soul that the galaxy I had known for 43 cycles was about to end. Not in fire, not in war, but in a quiet, terrible understanding that would settle over every council chamber, every embassy, every throne room from one end of the spiral arm to the other. The humans had been waiting, 40 years they had been waiting, and someone had finally been foolish enough to ask. I sat in that dark room for a long time, holding the data crystal in my trembling hands, and I knew that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I did not sleep that night. The clerk had been right about that. I lay in my bed with the lights on, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words from those files. The pictures, the reports, the careful, calm analysis of a species that the council had once thought of as harmless children. I rose before dawn and walked to my office. I told my assistant to cancel all my meetings. I needed to think. I needed to find some way to warn the Verthari before it was too late. But how do you warn someone who will not listen? The Verthari ambassador believed his fleet was unstoppable. He believed the humans were small and weak. He had 80,000 warships and 20 million soldiers. The humans had perhaps 400 ships in their whole fleet, and most of those were small. The numbers told one story, but the files told another, and they files were the ones I now believed. Let me tell you what I read in that archive. I will try to keep my voice steady as I do. The first report was made 70 years ago. A council scout ship had found Earth by accident. The scouts watched the planet from a safe distance for 3 full years before making contact. What they saw confused them so much that they almost did not file a report at all. They were afraid no one would believe them. Earth, the report said, was not a normal world. It was a death world. The word Deathworld has a specific meaning in galactic science. It refers to a planet where the natural environment is so harsh that intelligent life should not have been able to develop. Most council species evolved on gentle worlds, mild weather, few large predators, plenty of food, safe places to sleep. These conditions allowed our minds to grow without our bodies needing to fight every day for survival. Earth was the opposite of a gentle world. Earth had storms that could lift houses into the air. Earth had oceans that swallowed entire ships. Earth had mountains that exploded with fire and rivers of melted rock. Earth had ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Earth had deserts so hot that no other known species could walk across them and live. And Earth had predators. Oh, the predators! The scout report listed them carefully. Great striped beasts with claws the size of a Korathi finger. Massive gray animals with long noses that could uproot trees. Pack hunters with white teeth that worked together to bring down prey 10 times their size. Sea creatures longer than a starship with mouths that could swallow whole schools of smaller fish. Tiny insects that carried sicknesses powerful enough to wipe out entire cities. Plants that could poison anything that touched them. snakes whose smallest bite was enough to stop a heart in any normal evolution. Intelligent life would never have survived such a world. The early humans should have been eaten, they should have starved, they should have frozen, they should have died of sickness. Every test of survival the universe could throw at them they should have failed, but they did not fail, they won. The report described how the early humans hunted. They did not have claws, they did not have great teeth, they did not have armor, they were soft, slow creatures with no natural weapons at all. By every rule of nature, they should have been prey, not predators, but they had something no other animal on their world had. They had patience, and they had cleverness, and they had something the scouts could not quite name, but which they tried to describe in the report. They called it relentlessness. Here is how the humans hunted in the early days before they had any tools at all. They would pick a single animal from a herd, a fast animal, an animal that could easily outrun them in a sprint, and then they would simply start walking, not running, walking. They would follow that animal for hours, then for a day, then for 2 days. They would not stop, they would not turn back, they would not lose the trail. They walked on their 2 long legs while the animal ran on its 4 shorter ones, and they did not need to be faster. They only needed to never stop, and eventually, after enough hours, the animal would collapse from exhaustion, and snorts the humans would walk up to it calmly and take it. When I read this, I had to set down the data crystal and breathe for a long moment. I tried to imagine being that animal, looking back over my shoulder and seeing the humans still coming, sleeping for a few hours, and waking to find them walking up the hill behind me, running again and again until my legs would no longer move, and then seeing them arrive with no anger, no excitement, just calm purpose, doing what they had decided to do. No other species in the galaxy hunts that way. None. Most predators give up if their prey escapes the first attack. Humans do not give up. Humans see giving up as a kind of moral failure. The report continued. It described how the humans had spread across their entire planet, walking thousands of miles on their own feet, crossing deserts and mountains and oceans. They had reached every corner of their world before they had even invented the wheel. They had survived ice ages by hunting the great hairy beasts of the cold north. They had survived burning sands by learning which plants held water inside them. They had survived in places where no other thinking creature could live, and then they had begun to build. The second report covered the history of human warfare. I almost did not read this part. The clerk's warning came back to me, but I had to know. I made myself open the file. I will not describe everything I read. Some of it I cannot describe even now. The humans had fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. They had developed weapons of frightening creativity. They had built weapons that could destroy whole cities in a single moment. They had built diseases as weapons. They had built machines that flew through the air and rained destruction down upon their enemies. They had built machines that swam under the sea and waited for years, ready to release their power at any moment. And here is the part that froze my blood. After every great war, no matter how many of them had died, no matter how much had been destroyed, they rebuilt faster than before, stronger than before. They learned from each war and made the next one more efficient. Other species, when faced with such losses, would have given up or settled into permanent peace. The humans did. Not the humans treated each war as a lesson. They took notes, they wrote books, they taught the next generation how to fight better. There was one period in their history, the report, called the Cold War. For 40 years, two large groups of humans held the entire planet in a state of fear. Both sides had enough weapons to end all life on Earth. Both sides knew this, and both sides spent 40 years preparing to use those weapons if necessary. They built thousands and thousands of them. They placed them in hidden locations all over the planet, under the sea, in the deserts, deep beneath the mountains. They kept them ready every minute of every day for 40 years. No other species in the galaxy has ever done this. No other species could have done this. The mental strain of holding such weapons ready for 40 years would have broken the minds of any council species. The humans did not break, they simply continued. They built schools and raised families and went to work, and meanwhile the weapons waited under their feet ready. The conclusion of the report was written in the careful language that council analysts use when they are trying to control their emotions. It said this. I will quote it exactly. Snorts, because I have read it so many times that I have it memorized. Humans do not surrender in the manner understood by other species. When threatened, humans escalate. When cornered, humans become more dangerous, not less. There is no observed upper limit to the destruction humans are willing to cause in defense of their own kind. We recommend that no council species ever engage humans in military conflict. We recommend this with great urgency. We recommend this permanently. I sat back in my chair when I finished reading that. The sun was rising outside. I had been in that archive for 10 hours. My eyes burned, my head ached. But I was not finished. There was one more file in the series, a small one. Just a single page. It was dated only 12 cycles ago, much more recent than the others. It was titled Observed Human Preparation. I opened it. This report was different. It was not about ancient history. It was about right now. It said that the council had been quietly watching the humans since they joined as observers, watching to see what they did with their new access to galactic technology, watching to see how they behaved. What the council had observed was this: the humans had not built more colonies. They had not expanded their territory aggressively. They had not started trade wars or political conflicts. By every visible measure, they were a peaceful and quiet species. But they had been building quietly, carefully, in places where no one was looking. The report described things the analysts had only glimpsed, things they could not fully describe because the humans had hidden them well. There were factories in deep space where the humans were assembling something the size of small moons. There were research stations on dark worlds where strain energy signatures were being recorded. There were ships in the human fleet that did not appear in any official register. Ships that came and went from secret places, ships that no one was allowed to inspect. The analysts could not say exactly what the humans were building, but they could say what it looked like. It looked like the work of a species that was getting ready for something very specific, getting ready for the day when someone somewhere would finally make the mistake of threatening their world. The final line of the report read like this: the humans are not building an empire, they are building an answer. We Do not know what the question will be. That triggers it. But when the question is asked, we believe the answer will be terrible beyond our current understanding. I closed the file. I put the data crystal back in its case. I returned it to the clerk who took it from me without a word. I walked out of the archive into the bright morning sun, and the world looked different to me. Every face I passed, I wondered if they knew. Every council building, I wondered how many of them had read what I had read. I went to find the Virathari ambassador. I had to try to tell him. He laughed at me. He stood in his beautiful chamber with its red walls and its trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds, and he laughed at me until his mandibles clicked together with mirth. Kale Vaughn, he said, you have always been a nervous one. The humans are soft little creatures. They smile and bring candy. They have 400 ships. We have 80,000. The mathematics are quite simple. The mathematics, I said, have never been simple where these humans are concerned. Please, High Marshal, please pull back your fleet. Take the system. Take whatever you want, but do not engage them directly. They are not what they seem. He looked at me with pity. Real pity. He thought I had lost my mind. Old friend, he said, go home. Rest. I will send you a souvenir from the Kepler system once we have cleared it of these vermin. Perhaps a piece of one of their ships mounted on a plaque. You can put it in your office too. Remember how foolish your fears were. I left his chamber. I walked through the council district in a daze. The 30 days were already counting down. I returned to my office. I tried to write a formal warning to the council to be read in open session. I started it 3 times. Each time I deleted what I had written. Snorts. There were no words that would make them believe me. They would think the humans had somehow tricked me. They would laugh as the Virathari had laughed. So I waited. There was nothing else I could do. I watched the days pass. I watched the humans go about their normal business. Dr. Brooks attended sessions. She smiled. She was polite. She brought a small box of sweet wrapped things for the council aides on the 17th day, as she always did once a month. She made small talk with delegates. She did not mention the Virathari ultimatum. Once the Virathari fleet gathered 80,000 ships, the report said they moved into position near the Kepler system. They sent transmissions demanding the human surrender. They received no reply. On the 30th day, the deadline passed. The Virathari fleet jumped into the Kepler system, and the galaxy went silent. The first day of silence, no one was worried. The Virathari often took days to send back their first reports during a military action. The council waited. The humans did not seem concerned. Dr. Brooks attended a session on trade agreements and discussed grain prices with a Malaran delegate. The second day of silence, the Virathari ambassador began to make demands. He wanted the council to confirm that the humans had not interfered with his fleet communications. He wanted assurances. The council sent neutral observers toward the Kepler system to investigate. The observers were instructed to stay far away from any potential combat zone. The third day of silence, the observers reported strange readings. They said the Kepler system looked normal. No signs of battle, no debris fields, no energy flashes. They could see the humans' 400 small ships going about their usual patrols. They could not see the Virathari fleet at all, not one ship. The fourth day of silence, panic began. How could 80,000 warships simply vanish? Even if they had been destroyed, there would be wreckage, vast clouds of wreckage. The Kepler system was too large to hide it all, but there was nothing, as if the fleet had never arrived. The fifth day of silence, the Verthari ambassador stormed into the council chamber and demanded immediate action. He accused the humans of using forbidden technology. He demanded sanctions. He demanded answers. The council looked at Dr. Brooks. She stood up slowly. She had been working at her small desk reviewing documents when the Verthari began shouting. She brushed something off her sleeve and looked at the ambassador with calm, sad eyes. "High Marshal," she said, "your fleet is fine. Your soldiers are fine. We are taking very good care of them. You should hear from them soon." That was all she said. Then she sat back down and continued with her paperwork. The Verthari ambassador looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His kitten actually changed color, fading from deep red to a kind of gray. He opened his mandibles to speak, but no sound came out. He sat down heavily in his seat. He did not say another word for the rest of the session. The sixth day of silence. I could not stop walking. I paced through my apartment. I paced through the hallways of my embassy. I paced through the gardens outside the council building. What did she mean, taking care of them? Where were the ships? Where were the soldiers? The Verthari fleet had been the largest single force ever assembled in the recent history of the galaxy. 20 million crew members, 80,000 vessels, and the humans were taking care of them. The seventh day of silence. Something else happened. The humans on the council staff continued their normal duties. The clerks filed papers. The aides delivered messages. The translators worked the booths during sessions. None of them seemed concerned. None of them seemed even slightly anxious. I tested this. I sought out one of the human aides, a young man named Daniel Webb. He was perhaps 25 cycles old, with sandy hair and a friendly face. He worked in the documents office. I had spoken with him many times over the past 2 years. He had always been polite, helpful, easy to talk to. I asked him if he had heard from anyone at the Kepler system. He smiled. He was always smiling. "Not personally," he said, "but I am sure everything is going according to plan." According to plan, he said it like he was talking about a picnic. "Daniel," I said carefully, "are you not worried? Your people are fighting a fleet of 80,000 ships." He looked at me with mild confusion, as if I had said something strange. "Ambassador," he said gently, "there is no fight." We answered a question. "That is all. We hope it is the last time we have to answer it." He walked away with a folder under his arm, whistling a little tune. I stood in the hallway and felt very, very afraid. Eighth day of silence broke the silence. A single Verthari ship limped into council space. It was an escape pod, not even a full ship, just a small armored sphere designed to carry one important person to safety in the worst kind of emergency. It was scorched and battered, but it was moving under its own power. It signaled for permission to dock at the council station. Permission was granted. The whole council assembled in the main chamber, summoned in an emergency session. Dr. Brooks was there, seated in her usual place. The Verthari ambassador was there too, standing in the center of the floor, his mandibles trembling. The pod docked. The doors opened and out walked a single figure. It was High Marshal XSS Deck, the commander of the entire fleet, the architect of the demand against the humans. He was alive, but he was changed. He walked slowly into the chamber. His shell was cracked in many places. His compound eyes had gone cloudy, as if he had been through some great shock. His forearms hung limp at his sides, and his mandibles, the great cutting mouth parts that all Verthari are so proud of, had been very carefully removed. The wounds had been cleaned and treated. He had been given medical care. But he could not speak. The humans had taken that ability from him on purpose. And they had taken it with such skill that there was no doubt it was deliberate. The chamber gasped as one. Even species without lungs made sounds of horror. High Marshal XS Deck walked to the center of the floor. He stood before the council. He moved with the slow, careful steps of someone whose mind has been damaged by something it cannot understand. He looked around the chamber, his cloudy eyes passing over the rows of delegates. He found Dr. Brooks. He looked at her for a long moment. He bowed, a deep, humble bow, the kind a defeated emperor might to a god. Then he reached into a small pocket on his side and pulled out a data crystal. He placed it on the central podium. He stepped back. He waited. Council technicians activated the playback. A human voice filled the chamber. It was calm. It was gentle. It was the voice of someone speaking very carefully, choosing each word with great care. To the Galactic Council and to the people of the Verthari Dominion, greetings. We are returning your commander to you so that he may serve as a witness. We have not destroyed your fleet. Your fleet still exists. We have not ended your soldiers. Your soldiers are alive and well. They are being treated with respect and provided with food and rest. We have taken them. We have taken all of them. We did not want to do this. We did not want any of this. But your commander challenged us. He gave us a choice between leaving our homes or being removed from them. We will never leave our homes. We hope you will understand why. We wish to make several things clear to the council. First, we are not interested in conquest. Second, we are not interested in revenge. Third, we are not interested in tribute or apologies. We want only to be left alone to live in our small corner of the galaxy with our families and our homes in our world. If you can accept this, we can all be friends. If you cannot accept this, please consider very carefully what we have just shown. You, 80,000 ships, 20 million soldiers, taken in 8 days without a single loss to ourselves, without a single one of your people harmed beyond what was necessary to secure their capture. Please do not ask us this question. Again, we do not enjoy answering it. We do not want to live among neighbors who fear us, but we will defend our home if we must with everything we have, and we have much more than you think. Thank you for listening. We hope this is the end of the matter. The recording ended. The chamber was silent, so silent that I could hear my own hearts beating. Both of them. High Marshal XS Deck did not move. He stood there in the center of the floor, his cloudy eyes staring at nothing, his ruined mandibles trembling slightly. And then the Verthari ambassador began to make a sound. It was a low keening, a wail. From deep in his throat, he sank to his knees. His forearms fell to his sides. He continued to wail, a long and broken sound that filled the chamber and would not stop. I looked at Dr. Brooks. She was watching the Verthari ambassador with that same deep sadness I had seen On the first day, there was no triumph. On her face, no pride, no satisfaction. She looked more than anything like she was about to cry. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small handkerchief. She walked slowly across the chamber. Floor, she snorts knelt down beside the Verthari ambassador. She offered him the handkerchief gently, the way you might offer comfort to a child who has scraped his knee. I am so sorry, she said. I am so sorry that we had to do this. The Verthari ambassador did not take the handkerchief. He just stared at her. And then very slowly he reached out one of his trembling arms and touched her hand just for a moment, as if he could not believe she was real. She stood up. She walked back to her seat. She sat down. The council adjourned. We all stumbled out of the chamber in shock. No one spoke. No one made eye contact. We walked to our offices and our embassies and our homes, and we tried to understand what we had just witnessed. 8 days, 80,000 ships, 20 million soldiers taken, all of them alive. Humans had not even broken a sweat. I went home that night and sat on my balcony looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue world that I had never visited. World that had been quietly preparing for 40 years, waiting for the day someone would knock on its door. The Verthari had knocked and the humans had answered, and the answer had not even been the worst thing they could do. It had been a careful, controlled, almost gentle answer, a warning, a demonstration. I thought about what Dr. Brooks had said in the recording. We have much more than you think. I wondered what more meant. I wondered, and I shivered, and I sat on my balcony until the sun came up. The next morning, the council convened in special session. Every delegate was present, even species who normally sent only junior representatives had brought their senior leaders. The chamber was packed. Dr. Brooks stood up. She had agreed to brief the full council on what had happened at the Kepler system. She had warned us that some delegates might find the briefing difficult. She had suggested that any delegate who wished to leave should leave now. No one left. We should have, but we did not. She began very simply. She told us what we already knew. The Verthari had jumped into the Kepler system, expecting to find a small human force. They expected a quick action, a swift removal of the humans, and then full control of the system. What they found was different. The humans, she explained, had been preparing for this day for 40 years, ever since they had joined the council as observers. They had used those 40 years to study every other species in the galaxy. They had studied our military doctrines. They had studied our weapons. They had studied our ships. They had studied our strengths and our weaknesses. They had studied us the way a careful student studies for an important examination. But they had not built weapons like ours. That would have been a mistake. If they had built a larger version of a Verthari fleet, the Verthari would have known how to fight them. Instead, the humans had asked themselves a different question. They had asked, what kinds of weapons would be needed to defend Earth against any possible attack, not just the Verthari, any attack from anyone anywhere in the galaxy. And then they had built those weapons quietly, patiently, in hidden places for 40 years. She began to list some of them. I will try to repeat what she said, though my memory may not be perfect. Some of these descriptions made my head hurt. The first weapon she described was a swarm of small machines. Each machine was no larger than a Child's hand, they were almost impossible to detect. They moved by, absorbing tiny amounts of energy from the surrounding space. They could float for years in deep space, dormant, waiting. When activated, they would swarm together by the billions, attaching themselves to enemy ships in such numbers that the ships would simply stop functioning. The machines did not damage the ships, they surrounded them. They covered every sensor, every weapon, every engine. The ships became blind, deaf and frozen. They could be towed away like cargo. This, she explained gently, was how the Verathari fleet had been taken. 2 billion small machines, deployed quietly in the days before the fleet's arrival, had simply enveloped every ship as it jumped in. The crews had not even had time to fire their weapons. Their sensors had been blinded in the first moment. By the time anyone understood what was happening, the ships had already been disabled and were being moved to hidden holding stations in deep space. A delegate raised a trembling tendril where he asked, "Are the ships now safe?" Said Dr. Brooks, "Being maintained. The crews are being cared for. We are not their captors, we are their hosts. They will be returned in good condition when the Council confirms that there will be no further hostilities." She moved on to the next weapon. The second weapon she described was something called atmospheric manipulation. The humans, she said, had developed the ability to change the air of an enemy world to make it inhospitable to the species living there. They could remove specific gases that a species needed to breathe. They could change the temperature of a planet's surface by precise amounts. They could do this from far away using devices that could be hidden in the asteroid belts of the target system. The species on the surface would not know what was happening until it was already too late to stop. This weapon, she said, had never been used. The humans hoped it never would be, but it existed on every world in the galaxy where intelligent life lived. It had been placed there decades ago by ships that the humans had sent out quietly during the early years of their observer status. The devices were dormant. They could be activated at any moment by any human from anywhere. The delegates began to shift in their seats. Some of them made small sounds. The third weapon was something she called a kinetic strike. The humans, she explained, had taken large pieces of rock and metal from the empty places between stars. They had attached small engines to these rocks. They had accelerated them to terrifying speeds. They had aimed them at predetermined points in the galaxy, and then they had let them go. The rocks were now traveling through space at speeds so great that they could not be detected by normal sensors. They would arrive at their targets in years or decades or centuries. The humans had fired them long ago. They were already in flight right now as we spoke. Many of them were already very close to their targets. If any human government decided to release a final guidance signal, the rocks would adjust their course in the last moment and strike with the force of small suns. There was no way to stop them. There was no way to find them in time. They had been in flight for years. The damage they would cause was beyond any normal calculation. This was when several delegates began to weep. I saw a Moran elder collapse onto her seat. I saw the atrial ambassador, normally a proud and harsh figure, cover his face with his 3 hands. Dr. Brooks paused. She looked around the chamber. "I am telling you these things," she said softly, "because I want you to understand. I do not want you to be afraid of us. I want you to know that we have no interest in using these weapons. We do not enjoy them. We did not want to build them. We built them because we have learned from our own long history that those who do not prepare to defend themselves do not survive, and we very much wish to survive. She continued. The fourth weapon was something she did not describe in detail. She said only that it existed, that it had been built, that it was capable of ending all life on a world in a single moment, and that the humans hoped it would never be used. She would not say what it was. She would not say where it was. She said only that it was the last answer, the answer that would be given only if Earth itself was threatened with destruction. She called it the quiet door. She said the humans hoped no one would ever knock on it. The fifth thing she mentioned was not really a weapon. It was a way of thinking. She explained that the humans had been studying galactic civilization for 40 years, and they had noticed something interesting. Every other species in the galaxy assumed that war meant the destruction of ships, the death of soldiers, the breaking of armies. The humans had decided that war did not have to mean these things. War, the humans had decided, was about achieving a goal. If the goal could be achieved without destruction, that was better, and the humans had become very, very good at achieving goals without destruction. This was why the Vurathari fleet had been captured rather than destroyed. The humans could have destroyed the fleet. They had the capability, but destruction would have left 20 million dead Vurathari soldiers and 80,000 wrecked ships, and a generation of grief and anger that would have led to more war. Capture, on the other hand, left 20 million living soldiers who could go home and tell their families what they had seen. Capture left 80,000 intact ships that could be returned. Capture left a Vurathari dominion that would think very carefully before challenging humanity again. It was, she explained, the more efficient choice, the kinder choice, and the more frightening choice, because it told the galaxy that the humans were not just powerful, they were thoughtful. They had considered all the options. They had chosen the gentle one, and the gentle one had been more than enough. She stopped speaking. The chamber was silent for a long time. Finally, an old Althian delegate stood up. His voice was shaking. He was very old. He had been on the council nearly as long as Velna's. Dr. Brooks, he said, if you have all these weapons, if you have the power to do all these things, why have you not conquered us? Why are you still sitting in this council as one delegate among 400? Why have you not taken what you could so easily take? Dr. Brooks looked at him for a long time. She seemed to be considering her answer with great care. Because we do not want to, she finally said. We have no interest in ruling over you. We have no interest in your worlds or your resources. We have our own world. We love it very much. We would simply like to be allowed to keep it. Is that really so hard to understand? The old Althian sat down slowly. His tendrils trembled. He had no answer for her. None of us did. The session ended in a kind of dazed quiet. The delegates filed out of the chamber without speaking. We walked through the marble hallways like creatures in a dream. Outside, the sun was shining. The fountains in the council gardens were playing their soft music. The day was beautiful, but inside us something had changed forever. I walked to my office. I sat down at my desk. I tried to write a report to my Government on Thesia, I started it many times. I could not find the words. Finally I wrote only this: the galaxy is not what we thought it was. The humans are not what we thought they were, and we, the proud council of 412 civilizations, are not nearly as important as we believed. I sent the report. I shut down my screen. I went home. That evening I sat on my balcony. Again I looked at the stars. I thought about Dr. Brooks sitting in her small apartment somewhere in the council district. I thought about her smiling face. I thought about the small wrapped candy she gave to the aides. I thought about her quiet voice in the chamber, listing weapons that could end worlds. I thought about how she had cried when she said she was sorry to the Verthari ambassador. Real tears, real sorrow. She had not enjoyed any of this. None of the humans had enjoyed it. That, I realized, was the most frightening thing of all. They were not monsters. They were good people, kind people, people who would weep for the suffering they had caused, people who would offer a handkerchief to a defeated enemy, but they would still do what had to be done every time, without hesitation, without fail. And the galaxy, I understood, would never be the same. The weeks that followed changed everything, not loudly, not with announcements or parades. The changes came quietly, like the changing of the seasons, but they came in every council chamber, every embassy, every throne room, from one end of the spiral arm to the other. The Verthari Dominion was the first to act. 3 days after Dr. For Brooks's briefing, the new Verthar ambassador, a younger officer who had been quickly promoted to replace the broken old one, stood up in the council chamber. He read a prepared statement. The Verthari Dominion, he said, formally withdrew all territorial claims against the human worlds. The Verthari Dominion offered formal apologies for the actions of High Marshal Excess Deck. The Verthari Dominion wished to pay reparations for the trouble caused. Dr. Brooks stood up to reply. She thanked the new ambassador for his words. She accepted the apology on behalf of her people, and she politely refused the reparations. We do not want your money, she said. We do not want your worlds. We want only peace and an understanding between our peoples. Let us be friends. Let us trade. Let us learn from each other. The past is the past. Let it stay there. The Verthari ambassador bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the floor. He thanked her with words that were close to prayer. He returned to his seat. The Verthari fleet was returned exactly as Dr. Brooks had promised. All 80,000 ships, all 20 million soldiers. The ships were in perfect condition. The soldiers were rested, fed, and unharmed. They had been kept in vast holding facilities deep in human space, where they had been given proper quarters and proper food and proper care. Many of them had even learned a little human language during their captivity. They came home with strange stories of polite captors who served them tea and asked them about their families. The Verthari Dominion, which had been the most aggressive military power in this part of the galaxy for centuries, suddenly became the most polite. They withdrew from disputed systems. They returned old prisoners of war that they had been holding for decades. They sent gifts to neighboring civilizations that they had been threatening for years. They signed peace treaties they had refused to sign before. Other powers noticed. The HFY Concordat, which had been planning a small action against a neighboring world, suddenly canceled all military preparations and sent diplomats to offer trade agreements. Instead, the Black Spire Collective, which had been threatening trade routes for as long as anyone could remember, suddenly began to honor every treaty they had ever signed. The Denari hives, who had refused to participate in council sessions for over 100 years, suddenly sent a full delegation with apologies for their long absence. None of these changes were demanded by the humans. The humans never said a word. They never asked for anything. They simply continued to do their normal work in the council, attending sessions, smiling at delegates, bringing small candies to share with the aides on the 17th of every month. But the galaxy understood. The galaxy understood, without anyone needing to say it. Age of casual aggression was over. The age of throwing one's weight around was over. Whatever the humans truly were, they were not to be tested. Whatever the humans truly could do, no one wanted to find out. The council itself changed. In a session that I will never forget, the assembly voted to elevate humanity from observer status to full membership. Dr. Brooks accepted the new role with her usual quiet grace. She gave a short speech. She thanked the council for the honor. She promised that humanity would be a good neighbor. She promised that they would never use their power against anyone who did not threaten them first. I believed her completely. That was the strangest part. I believed every word she said, and I think the rest of the council did too. Dr. Brooks served on the council for several more cycles. After that, she remained the same, kind, polite, always with a small gift to share, always with a warm smile. She negotiated trade agreements. She mediated disputes between other species. She became, perhaps surprisingly, one of the most beloved delegates in the council. Other ambassadors would seek her out for advice. They would invite her to their embassies for tea. They would ask her opinion on their problems. She was always generous with her time. She was always patient. She never spoke of weapons or wars. She never reminded anyone of what her people had done at the Kepler system. She did not need to. We all remembered. I had one conversation with her near the end of my own service on the council. I was preparing to retire. I had served 46 cycles by then. My health was failing. My eyes were not what they had been. I wanted to go home to Thessa to spend my final years with my children and grandchildren. Dr. Brooks invited me to her apartment for a farewell dinner. I accepted. I had never been to her home before. I did not know what to expect. Her apartment was small, plain, filled with books and pictures of her family. She had children of her own, she told me, 2 daughters, both grown now, both with their own families on Earth. She showed me pictures of them. She showed me a picture of her own mother, an old woman, with the same warm smile that Dr. Brooks herself wore. We ate a simple meal. She had cooked it herself. It was strange food, but tasty. She talked about Thea and asked about my children. She listened carefully to my stories. She laughed at the right moments. She seemed sad when I spoke of leaving. At the end of the evening, as I was preparing to leave, I finally found the courage to ask the question I had been carrying for cycles. Dr. Brooks, I said, forgive me, but there is something I have wondered for a very long time. The weapon you would not describe, the quiet door. May I ask what is it? I will tell no one. I am leaving the council. It would just be for my own understanding. She looked at me for a long time. Her warm brown eyes searched my face. She seemed to be deciding something. Finally she sighed. "Sit down, Kale," she said. "Let me try to explain." I sat down. She poured me another cup of the human drink she had served at dinner. Then she sat across from me and folded her hands in her lap the way she always did before. She said something important. "Every species in this galaxy," she began, "looks up at the stars. You all see something different. The Malaran see beauty, the Varathari see territory, the Korath history, the Atral see opportunity. Do you know what humans see? When we look up at the stars," I shook my head, "we see fuel," she said simply. "We see things that burn. We have always seen them this way from the very first time one of our ancestors looked up at the night sky. We see power, we see possibilities, we see what could be done if you were willing to do anything at all." She paused. She took a small sip from her own cup. "The quiet door," she said, "is what happens when we stop pretending we don't see them that way. It is the answer we would give if Earth itself were attacked, if our world were truly threatened, if there was a real possibility that our species would end." She did not describe the weapon. She did not need to. "We hope," she said softly, "that we never have to open that door. We hope it stays closed for as long as our people exist. We have built it because we have learned from our own long story. That hope is not enough. You must also be ready, but please, Kale, please do not think that we want to use it. We do not. We weep when we think of it. We pray that the rest of the galaxy will simply let us be." I nodded. I could not speak. My throat had closed up. She walked me to the door of her apartment. At the threshold, she did something I did not expect. She hugged me, a short, gentle hug, the way humans do with their friends. I had never been hugged before. It was a strange feeling, warm, almost comforting. "Be well, Kale Vaughn," she said. "Live the rest of your days in peace. Tell your grandchildren about the galaxy you have known. Tell them that the humans are not their enemies. Tell them that we want only to be friends. Will you tell them that?" "I will tell them, I promised." She closed her door. I walked out into the night. I went home to Thessa a few weeks later. I retired from the council. I moved into a small house near the sea, where the waves of our pale green ocean lap against the rocks. Each morning my children come to visit. My grandchildren play in the garden. I am old now and my eyes grow dim, but I am happy here. Every evening when the sun sets, I walk down to the shore and look up at the sky. I find the small blue star where the humans live. It is hard to see, but I always find it. I look at it for a long time. I am not afraid anymore. Not for myself, not for my people. The galaxy is at peace, and the peace is real, and it is built on something so simple that it almost makes me laugh when I think about it. The peace is built on a single understanding, whispered in every embassy, every council chamber, every throne room, from one end of the spiral arm to the other. Do not threaten Earth. Do not challenge Earth. Do not raise your voice at Earth. Leave them alone. Trade with them. Be their friends. Visit their world if they invite you. Bring them small gifts. Accept their candy on the 17th of each month. Smile when they smile, but do not, under any circumstance, ever, ever, ever make them angry. I tell this story to my grandchildren when they are old enough to understand. They listen with wide eyes. They ask me questions. They want to know what the humans look like. They want to know if I have ever met one. They want to know if I am afraid of them. I tell them what Dr. Brooks asked me to tell them. The humans are not our enemies. The humans are our friends. They want only to be left alone to live on their small blue world with their families and their gardens and their small wrapped candies. They are kind. They are patient. They are good neighbors. But I also tell them this. I tell them that the galaxy is a wide and dangerous place, that power exists in many forms, that the most dangerous creatures are not always the largest or the loudest. Sometimes the most dangerous creature in the room is the small soft one who smiles politely and brings sweets and asks about your family. I tell them to be kind to the humans, to be respectful, to be honest, to honor every agreement made with them. And I tell them above all to never ever knock on the quiet door. The stars are bright tonight as I finish this recording. The sea is calm. My grandchildren are sleeping in the next room. Tomorrow we will go fishing together and I will teach the oldest one how to mend a net. Life is good. Life is peaceful. The galaxy is at rest. And somewhere out there on a small blue world, a kind woman with warm brown eyes is sleeping next to her family, dreaming whatever dreams humans dream. May she sleep well. May her people sleep well. May the quiet door stay closed for 10,000 years and 10,000 more after that. This is Cale Vaughn, Ambassador. Retired. This is my final word on the matter. May my grandchildren remember it. May their grandchildren remember it. May we all remember what we have learned. Do not challenge Earth. Just leave them alone. That is all. That is everything. Good night.